Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jessie Reimers, and I thought I'd put together a bit of a webinar because I've had lots of questions about 5G in the last few weeks. So, yeah, I've put a bit of a presentation together, and I thought I'd just start by showing you a little animation that myself, Dean, and Sam from Interlude Media had made a couple of weeks ago to help raise awareness. If you haven't already seen it, or if you've seen it, I'm just going to play it for you again.
And how does this technology affect me? 5G technology will use extremely high millimeter wave frequencies. Instead of having one large phone tower like we currently have for our 4G system, 5G will also have antennae or small cells set up anywhere between 100 to 500 meters on light poles, outside schools, homes, and shopping centers. 5G is designed to deliver concentrated and focused electromagnetic radiation and will result in a massive increase in inescapable, involuntary exposure to wireless radiation. ARPANSA, the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency, who set the safety standard limits, say that the 5G network is included within their limits. However, this limit is set at 100 times higher than most other countries worldwide. ARPANSA claim that they are an independent organisation. However, they receive $1 million annually from the wireless industry. The evidence that radio frequency radiation is harmful to living organisms forms a literature base of over 10,000 peer-reviewed studies. The peer-reviewed literature shows there are a number of serious health concerns linked with the technology 5G will use. Damage goes well beyond the human race, as there is growing evidence of harmful effects to both plants and animals. Faster internet should not come at a cost this great to the planet and all its living creatures. Let's stop this 5G rollout together. Sign and share the petition. What is...
Oops, sorry about that. All right, so the focus of this webinar is to give you a clear understanding of what 5G is. Also to talk a little bit about non-ionizing radiation, because pretty much every time I post about 5G or radio frequency radiation, people comment non-ionizing radiation isn't harmful to humans. So we'll look at that hypothesis. Also look at the potential health effects of 5G, the problems with our regulatory bodies, industry corruption, and how to stop this locally and nationally within Australia. I can't comment on other parts of the world, but this can give you a good place to start information-wise. And obviously, please remember to sign our nationwide petition, bit.ly/stop5GAUS, and keep sharing this. Don't just share it once and think everyone's going to see that. Continually share that. Continually share information. Post it in groups. If you know any influencers, send that information to them as well. We've got nearly 50,000 signatures on that petition, and it's a great way to start raising awareness. And also, anytime people question anything about 5G, just go within the petition link, because all of the science, the information on non-ionizing radiation, pretty much most of the information that I'm presenting in this webinar tonight is laid out with you in the petition. So if you don't know everything off the top of your head, feel free to go in there and use parts of that petition to answer people's questions about 5G. But please continue sharing that, because we do need to raise awareness in order to get this rollout stopped and halted until we've had independent biological safety testing done. So how does 5G technology work? Basically, 5G technology will dramatically change our exposure to wireless radiation. Initially, the technology will use frequencies below 6 gigahertz, like 4G, and then it will use sub-millimeter waves 6 to 30 gigahertz. And in the future, well, it does have the capability to go up to all the way to 300 gigahertz. So whether it will or not, not sure, but it does have the ability to do that, which is concerning. So Telstra are telling people they do not need to use small cells for 5G technology, but then on their own website admit small cells are coming soon. So bit of confusing misinformation out there from Telstra themselves. Basically, what I believe the plan is to get everyone comfortable with all the new antennas everywhere and then turn up the frequency. So where will these be located? Already I've seen base stations and towers attached to the top of apartment buildings where people sleep, on top of and very close to childcare centres and close to schools, on top of shops and in workplace yards, as well as outside homes. This is concerning because 5G is designed to deliver concentrated and focused electromagnetic radiation far greater than current levels and will result in a massive increase in inescapable, involuntary exposure to wireless radiation. That information is from the 5G Space Appeal, by the way, which is also really important to sign because it also is talking about the satellites that are going up as well. So if you want to know where proposed and current towers are, go to the RFNSA website, put in your address, and see what's already happening around you. So ARPANSA are unfit to protect us. ARPANSA, which is the Australian government's regulatory body who set the safety standard limits for exposure to radio frequency, the technology 5G use, say that the operation frequencies of the 5G network are included within our limits. So as the video showed and showed that graph, the ARPANSA safety limits are set at 1,000 microwatts per square centimetre up to 300 gigahertz. And this was set in 2002 against a Senate committee recommendation of 200 microwatts per square centimetre in 2001. If we have a look at this graph, we'll see that our exposure limits are set 100 times higher than many other countries worldwide. So you've got Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Italy, China, parts of Canada, Bulgaria, all set at 10. And then you've got parts of Austria set at 0.0001 indoors. I believe the Bioinitiative recommendation is 0.0003 to 0.0006. And ours is set at 1,000, which is just completely insane. So also what's concerning is ARPANSA accept no liability. They have a disclaimer on their website that says that their info should only be used as a guide for education purposes and that you should seek professional advice, i.e. a doctor. If their information should only be used as a guide, why is it the standard that is being used to roll out 5G? Also, ARPANSA admit more research needs to be done. Dr. Karapidis admits that the higher frequencies used in 5G technology will penetrate human tissue and acknowledges that there are gaps in the knowledge that require further research. ARPANSA therefore has made recommendations for areas where further studies are needed. The recommendations include research for frequencies above 6 gigahertz and for emerging technologies that use them like 5G. But they go on to say that despite gaps in the knowledge, no health effects are expected from radio frequency exposures below the limits set in the ARPANSA standard. I'll go into the precautionary approach a bit later, but to me, this is just absolute bullshit. Basically, why would you say no health effects are expected if you already know there are gaps in knowledge? That's not a precautionary approach. There's known unknowns here. So why not roll it out until you've done the research and you know for sure that no health effects are expected? It's just absolute rubbish. So also ARPANSA are not truly independent. ARPANSA claim they're independent. They aren't. They receive funding from industry body. It says so on their website. They did release a couple of days ago a press statement ranting about 5G activists and their inaccuracies in their campaigns. There is a lot of inaccuracy flying around, by the way, on the internet, which doesn't help our cause, by the way. We need to be sharing good information, not hype, hysteria-filled, rubbish that isn't backed up by science, because it does make us look like, not intelligent people that are just ranting unnecessarily. We need to stick to the facts because it's not going to help our cause and it's not going to help us get the mainstream on board. You can also see, sorry about the planes going over. You can have a look at the Senate inquiry in 2001, which clearly shows industry input, basically. Industry corruption is rife. Also comments on ARPANSA also are amazing, by the way. They're an independent organisation. They volunteer their time to put together research on non-ionizing radiation. This is a comment from Victor Leach. He's a scientist, radiation expert of 40 plus years. He also used to work for, I forget what they were called because this was quite a long time ago, but they are now ARPANSA. So he was working for a body under a different name, which have now changed their name to ARPANSA. So he knows what he's talking about. He's a radiation expert. He's a scientist. And he says ARPANSA has ignored a large evidence base that challenges their position. The scientific evidence we have collated, presented, and made publicly available demonstrates that there are biological health effects occurring at exposures well below the ARPANSA standard. Therefore, ARPANSA's claim that there is no substantiated evidence that RF exposure at levels below the limits of the ARPANSA standard causes harm to humans is misleading. A risk management approach should be adopted urgently for RF EMR, so that's radio frequency, with ALARA as the mainstay of this plan. So ALARA, for those that don't know what that means, is as low as reasonably something, as low as reasonably allowable, maybe. So it's a very low standard. Wireless technology is not risk-free as implied by ARPANSA's claim of no established evidence of harm. Australians need to be informed of the risks so that they can make informed decisions when it comes to the use of wireless technology, particularly with regards to more vulnerable groups such as children. So there was an activist group on the West Coast which wrote to ARPANSA. They received a reply from ARPANSA, and then this group contacted Professor Martin Poole, who is very passionate about this subject, and he wrote a 28-page reply to ARPANSA. If you want to Google that, just Google Professor Martin Poole's letter to ARPANSA, you'll find it. But this was part of it. It should be clear that the independent scientists and physicians know that these safety guidelines, which do not take into account the many thousands of studies on non-thermal EMF effects, have no connection with genuine scientific literature. So just to back that up and explain that a little bit, what does non-thermal mean? So basically, what ARPANSA are saying, what other people are saying, what Dr. Karl says, is that the only concern is that it's going to heat our skin a little bit. But the studies, many thousands of studies, are showing that there's non-thermal effects from this kind of radio frequency radiation. So even at levels below heating the skin, you're finding biological health effects. So Professor Martin Poole summarizes this 28-page letter, which is worth reading if you are interested in understanding this more. He says, with 100% consistency, ARPANSA avoids all of the strongest available science in this area. With 100% consistency, ARPANSA has produced a stunningly biased document whose positions are repeatedly and consistently contradicted by the strongest science and by large numbers of independent scientists. With 100% consistency, ARPANSA has failed to protect the health and safety of the people of Australia. With 100% consistency, ARPANSA has protected the economic interests of the telecommunications industry. Now, by the way, ARPANSA, when they released that press release a couple of days ago online, they tried to pass the buck to ACMA. ACMA are not free of industry connections either. ACMA actually sell the spectrum. So, and ACMA rely on ARPANSA's standards to regulate the rollout of 5G. So both of them have issues in terms of ties to industry, and they're trying to pass the buck to each other. And then they'll try and pass the buck to ICNIRP over in, which is kind of that international guide, which is also not free of industry corruption as well, industry interests. It's basically a club. So there's major issues with that. You can go on ORSA website and look up more about ICNIRP. You can also go on Professor Darius Lazinski's website and look up more about ICNIRP, which is ICNIRP. So major issues. This is Darius Lazinski here. So the WHO and the IARC classification, in 2011, on the basis of the scientific research executed after cell phones were deployed for civilian use, the group of 30 experts invited by the WHO's International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified cell phone radiation and any like radiation as a possible human carcinogen, category 2B in the IRAC scale. After this classification made in 2011, several new scientific studies were published that appear to strengthen the notion that the wireless radiation is not only a possible carcinogen, but that it might or should be reclassified as a probable human carcinogen, category 2A. More info from Darius Lazinski, PhD, and was invited expert to the working group on non-ionizing radiation. His blog is Between a Rock and a Hard Place. There's fantastic information on there if you do really want to get educated on this subject, which I believe is really important, because if we want to genuinely work together to stop this, it's important that we actually understand what's going on a scientific level. We can back up what we're saying with experts like Darius and others who know what they're talking about. And when we continuously bring this information to regulatory bodies and the government with large numbers of the Australian public behind us, not just a couple of us, but continuously in large numbers bring this to the attention of our government, of regulatory bodies, I believe there's no way that we can be ignored. The science is too damning and the evidence is there. These are real concerns. So scientists call for research first. Scientists are cautioning that before rolling out 5G, research on human health effects urgently needs to be done first to ensure the public and environment are protected. Again, unlike our Panzer, who are giving it the nod, despite having acknowledged more research needs to be done. The bottom line is that safety guidelines from bodies such as our Panzer are clearly designed to protect industry, not health, as the profits from 5G are immense. Health effects. Effects include increased cancer risk, cellular stress, increase in harmful free radicals, genetic damages, structural and functional changes of the reproductive system, learning and memory deficits, neurological disorders, and negative impacts on general well-being in humans. Damage goes well beyond the human race, as there's growing evidence of harmful effects to both plants and animals. Comments from Dr. Goldberg. She's an internal medicine physician and professor, and these were her comments on 5G. Wireless radiation has biological effects, period. This is no longer a subject for debate when you look at PubMed and the peer-reviewed literature. These effects are seen in all life forms: plants, animals, insects, microbes. In humans, we have clear evidence of cancer now. There is no question. We have clear evidence of DNA damage, cardiomyopathy, which is a precursor of congestive heart failure, neuropsychiatric effects. 5G is an untested application of a technology that we know is harmful. We know it from the science, and in academics, this is called human subjects research. Dr. Sharon Goldberg. So what does human subjects research mean? Is that they're basically using us to experiment this technology on rather than testing it first. Comments from Professor Martin L. Paul again. His work is brilliant. Please look him up. He also does have a 90-page book on this stuff. He is a professor at Emeritus of Biochemistry and Basic Medical Sciences at Washington University. He says, putting in tens of millions of 5G antennae without a single biological test of safety has got to be about the stupidest idea anyone has had in the history of the world. So where to find studies? Again, we need to back what we say up consistently with science and research. There is already a substantial and convincing amount of scientific studies that show many adverse health effects and health hazards from radio frequency/microwave radiation. Check out a large number of peer-reviewed research articles at ehtrust.org. That's a fantastic website. The Bio Initiative, 4,000 studies, justproveit.net, several thousand studies, EMF portal, PowerWatch, thousands of studies there, and also the author database, which is, I'll just never stop raving about those guys. They're amazing. So the NTP 25 million study done by the US National Toxicology Program clearly shows that biological impacts occur at non-thermal exposures like those that take place from cell phones today. Yeah, more about the ORSA database. These guys are the Oceania Radio Frequency Scientific Advisory Association. They were formed in 2015 by a group of academics and researchers throughout Australia. Their goal is to provide an independent perspective on the science relating to electromagnetic radiation and human exposure. Again, they're an independent organization, not linked to any industry or government organization, which is crucial because industry corruption is rife. So this is a review of funding sources in the ORSA database, because what they do is they compile the research, but then they also break it down by who funded it. Now, if you look here, this is industry-only funded studies, and they find no effect, which means like no health effect, no biological effects, 62% of the time. And they still find an effect 22% of the time, by the way. But when you look at institution-only funding, you've got an effect, so biological health effects of non-ionizing radiation, 77% of the time. And no effect, you find that only 12% of the time. So this is communications agency funding outcomes. No effect, 69% of the time. Government only funded, 60% of the time they do find a health effect. So what people keep saying is that the science is unclear. You know, you've got 50-50 on the studies, so it looks like it's fine, blah, blah, blah. But that's because industry are Funding studies, defunding studies where they find things they don't like, and burying evidence. So the science is actually clear if you look at studies that aren't funded by industry, in that most of them are finding effects, not good ones either. So a 2001 Senate inquiry in Australia found, and there's a lot more in the Senate inquiry than just this, but this is one of the things that stood out to me most when I spent my time reading that Senate inquiry. It was contended that the telecommunications industry will try to influence research into electromagnetic emissions to show that there are no ill health effects from its technology. If you are a researcher doing research that is being funded by industry, if you are coming up with results that are not what the company wants to hear, you will not get further funding. But if you give results that look good, you tend to get further funding. So there is very much a bias to slant your research towards the person who is providing the funding. Some submissions have claimed that industry cover-ups and interference in the publication of research results and selection bias in the choice of studies to be funded are reasons for the failure to replicate many studies that have shown a relationship between EMR and biological health effects. It's disturbing. So, non-ionizing radiation. The repeated argument used in the media and by regulatory authorities and also trolls is that non-ionizing radiation doesn't harm humans. Dr. Carl Krasinski, Triple J science communicator and qualified scientist, doctor and engineer, is also on board with this argument. These are his quotes. It's non-ionizing. Bottom line is it's never been proven to cause cancer. It might sit in your skin and warm it up, but that doesn't cause cancer. By the way, I don't want technology sitting in my skin and warming it up. It'll warm up your skin a tiny amount, but so tiny you won't be able to measure it. So let's look at this hypothesis. The unfortunate truth is that this is an outdated hypothesis and it completely ignores current science, which shows that there are many non-thermal biological effects associated with non-ionizing radiation. The kind of radiation 5G technology will emit from small cells as well as large towers right outside your house, schools, and shops 24/7. So I was just up in Brisbane interviewing some of the members of ORSA for the documentary we're making about 5G and radio frequency radiation. And they were very clear that non-ionizing radiation does have biological effects, and not just on humans either, on insects and animals, and affects our environment. Also, the manufacturers, while they don't, and one of the scientists I was talking to was saying, as soon as you buy a cell phone, it should come up with a video or warning immediately about how to use this device safely, but instead they bury it deep within the phone, which is ridiculous, but I suppose they're still protecting themselves from some form of liability. But even Samsung have released a statement that includes the following. While RF energy does not ionize particles, large amounts can increase body temperatures and cause tissue damage. Two areas of the body, the eyes and the testes, are particularly vulnerable to RF heating because there is relatively little blood flow in them to carry away excess heat. So they're still sticking to the RF energy not ionizing particles and ignoring the fact that it still has biological health effects, but they're still saying it does damage. Did you know that if you go into your iPhone, you go to settings, general, about, legal, RF exposure, again, buried super deep within the phone, they recommend to reduce exposure to RF energy, use a hands-free option, never hold the phone up to your head. You know, they don't go out there teaching this to everyone, but it's in there. Such as the built-in speakerphone, supplied headphones, or other similar accessories. Cases with metal parts may change the RF performance of the device, including its compliance with RF exposure guidelines in a manner that has not been tested or certified. Just going to wait for that plane. The fact is, though, non-ionizing radiation damage goes beyond heating. So current safety guidelines, like from a PANZA and ICNIRP and the rest, are based on the obsolete hypothesis that heating is the only harmful effective EMFs. As Markov and Grigoriev have stated, today's standards do not consider the real pollution of the environment with non-ionizing radiation. Hundreds of scientists have proven that many different kinds of acute and chronic illnesses and injuries are caused without heating. Again, this is the non-thermal effect, from radiation levels far below international guidelines. Biological effects occur even at near zero power levels. Despite widespread denial, the evidence that radio frequency radiation is harmful to life is already overwhelming. The accumulated clinical evidence of sick and injured human beings, experimental evidence of damage to DNA, cells, and organ systems in a wide variety of plants and animals, and epidemiological evidence that the major diseases of modern civilization, cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, are in large part caused by electromagnetic pollution, forms a literature base of well over 10,000 peer-reviewed studies. That info is from the 5G Space Appeal. Please go and sign that as well. Super, super crucial. Again, look at the other studies I shared earlier, and also the ORSA database for studies on the non-thermal biological effects of non-ionizing radiation. Also, please check out Martinelle Paul's 90-page book. You can just Google it, you'll find it. There are many possible indirect effects that may occur given the complexity of biology. But our situation goes way beyond that, because we know that most of the effects are produced via VGCC activation, which produces as downstream effects the free radical breakdown products of peroxynitrate. Those free radical breakdown products attack DNA, proteins, and other biological constituents in ways that are very similar to the ways in which ionizing radiation attacks these same molecules. Ionizing radiation was shown by Arthur Compton, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1927, for showing that ionizing radiation produces large numbers of free radicals through what has become known as Compton scattering, with those free radicals being responsible for most of the biological effects of ionizing radiation. So the often repeated industry claim that ionizing radiation is dangerous, but non-ionizing radiation is not, is wrong. Both of them produce similar effects mediated through free radical generation. There's heaps more information in this 90-page book, but that's a good summary. Frank Clegg, former head of Microsoft Canada, points out the safety standards only protects people from thermal damage that can occur through overheating. But again, scientists have demonstrated that radiation-emitting devices can cause DNA damage without heating tissue. These are non-thermal effects. Why is this science being ignored on the non-thermal effects? He says, and this is a quote from ABC Catalyst's Wife Ride episode, and Marianne de Macy got the sack after releasing that, interestingly. Unfortunately, the safety standards in North America and in Australia are based on this theory that's many decades old, that if tissue doesn't get heated, that it can't cause harm. And that's just out of date. What the biologists tell us and have shown in many, many experiments, and again in peer-reviewed published papers, is that there is damage done at the DNA level and from a biological standpoint. Non-thermal radiation can cause and does cause harm to humans. And again, not just humans. Bad news for bees. One study in India used 6 colonies of honeybees, and half of them served as the control group. The test colonies were provided with working mobile phones, a frequency of 900 megahertz for 10 minutes each day for 10 days, and the others without mobile phones. Flight activity and returning ability of honeybees were measured before exposure, during exposure, and after exposure. The results of this study showed that after 10 days, the worker bees never returned to the hives in the test colonies. The massive amount of radiation produced by mobile phones and towers is actually frying the navigational skills of the honeybees and preventing them from returning back to their hives. Dr. Andrew Goldsworthy says cryptochromes are very badly affected by weak oscillating electromagnetic fields that are orders of magnitude weaker than the Earth's steady magnetic field. This can disrupt both solar and magnetic navigation, which can account for colony collapse disorder in bees. As we know, bees are critical to life. They pollinate our food sources. Without them, we're pretty much screwed as a civilization. And we're already seeing a massive decline in bee and insect populations, especially in America, in Europe, and also in Australia, not just because of radio frequency radiation. Of course, there's massive issues with Roundup, glyphosate, pesticides. It's all the same crap. But also, I believe radio frequency radiation, from the science that I've been reading, has already had an effect with even 2, 3, and 4G. And 5G will be even worse because of the millimeter waves that will actually resonate with their antennas and their navigational systems. The other massive concern that I haven't put in my PowerPoint, but I just want to mention, is with the satellites, and even just with 5G on the ground, you're actually messing with the Schumann resonance, which is Earth's natural resonance. And our brain waves have their natural resonance as well. We're electric beings. Our brain's electric, our heart's electric. And when you're constantly putting out other frequencies, of course, it's a massive disruption to not just us, but every living thing. It's super concerning what we're doing, especially with those satellites messing with the Schumann resonance. Crazy. So concerns for our kids. Our kids are more susceptible to harm. Their skulls are thinner. The radiation completely penetrates their entire brain when a device is held to their head. Plus, they're being exposed their entire lives as well, which is very concerning. What kind of effects we're going to see long term in these kids. So again, coming back to this need for precaution, UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, developed the precautionary principle, which states that when human activities may lead to morally unacceptable harm, that is scientifically plausible but uncertain. Plausible but uncertain. So we do already have thousands upon thousands of peer-reviewed studies. We don't actually know how 5G is really going to affect people because it's new technology that's mostly untested, especially biologically. There are no independent tests for biological safety. Sorry, can't even talk at the moment. But the precautionary principle is only that it's scientifically plausible but uncertain. Actions shall be taken to avoid or diminish that harm. I don't roll it out without independent testing of biological safety. And not doing that is breaking international law, by the way. So why are regulatory bodies saying we don't have proof of harm, therefore roll it out? Shouldn't they be saying we need more proof that it doesn't harm until such time we won't be rolling it out? So how to stop local towers. This is possible. Raymond Broomhall Action is working, by the way. This is a barrister from Tasmania. There's been a tower stopped about an hour and 15 minutes from my house. I know there have other areas that have stopped these going up, several of them popping up all over Australia where his action is actually working. But it is going to take you actually taking action, not just scrolling on Facebook and being worried about it, but not doing anything. So write to your local council. Ensure you have a doctor's letter to accompany your letter to council. That is important. Visit we say no to 5G in Australia.com and you can go to resources section, or if you want to take a photo of that and put Raymond Broomhall Action down, you can watch the videos, you can read his steps. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Like, it does say things like you need a building biologist and you need to do EMA testing and stuff. I believe if you write to council and you have a doctor's letter included, that will be enough. So don't let all of the steps overwhelm you. If you do want to do all of them, go for it, of course. But also make sure you do this with others. It's so much easier to get this kind of thing done when you work as a group. And also you're going to get taken seriously by council a lot more if there's a lot more constituents. So that's why it's crucial to raise awareness, to be sharing information with other people, to be doing letterbox drops, to be talking to your neighbours, to be talking to parents at your local school. To be sharing on social media, but also taking physical action. We can't just sit around talking about how concerned we are and not doing anything about it. So how to protect yourself at home. Never hold your phone up to your ear. Always use on speaker mode or use air tube headsets, which is not AirPods, the things that comes with iPhones. Those are not good for you. Carry your phone in a bag, not in your pocket, definitely not in your bra, or if you must put it in your pocket, make sure it's on airplane mode and turn location services off when not in use to reduce radiation. You don't need to have your phone on all day. Even turning it off, I know, which will disturb, most people who are obsessed with their phones, but imagine if we all started using our phones a lot less and engaging with the world more. Like, I personally love technology. Technology has changed my life. It's actually allowed me to connect and engage with communities. It's allowed me to create a successful business using the internet to support my current customers, get new customers, and then connect with them in person. It's allowed me to find information and resources to help me with my own physical and emotional health. Of course, it's allowed me to find out about the concerns about 5G. I love technology, but it's about having balanced use and using these things sensibly in ways that are much safer. So put your phone on airplane mode at night or turn it off. and preferably don't charge it in your bedroom. Definitely don't have it under your pillow or right beside your bed. Or if you are on call and you have to leave it on, leave it in the corner of the room away from your bed head, not right on top of your head. Turn off your Wi-Fi router whenever it's not in use. Obviously turn it off at night time, but I actually only turn it on now when I am using it. You can even get a timer so that it does automatically turn off at night. And of course, if possible, get fiber optic or Ethernet connection as soon as possible instead of just having Wi-Fi connection. So that's a much, much safer way to connect to the internet. Again, I'm not anti-technology, love technology, but let's have safe ways to be connected. So this information is from Nicole Belsma, who's a building biologist. We've also interviewed her for our documentary. She's very knowledgeable, absolute legend. She's got a great book as well. This is from her website though. So distance is your friend. It's called the inverse square law, and it essentially means as you double the distance away from an EMF source, you will reduce your exposure to it by 75%. It's the cheapest, simplest, and most effective advice I can give. Keep appliances at least 1 meter away from areas where you spend time, such as the bed, favorite couch, desk, and so on. So don't have your Wi-Fi router on your desk. Don't have it in your bedroom. Don't have it when you're lounging on the couch. She says, shielding materials and paint should only be used as a last resort if you're unable to eliminate the source of the field. Be mindful that these products can only be used to reduce exposure to AC electric fields and radio frequencies, not AC magnetic fields. If the shielding company is the same company that tests EMFs, like GeoVital or Y-Shield, run in the opposite direction. From our experience, you are much more likely to be conned in spending thousands of dollars shielding a room that may or may not require it, and would be far better off getting an ACES certified building biologist to assess the home. So what about kids? Significantly limit your kids' screen time. If they do use an iPad or iPhone, download whatever they're using, so if it's a game or whatever, and then put on airplane mode and turn Wi-Fi off. And please speak to your kids' schools about having the Wi-Fi modems off whenever they're not in use to limit your children's exposure in the classroom. Speak to the principal and speak to them about having grounded Ethernet or fiber optic if at all possible, and give smart meters an extremely hard pass. You can opt out of smart meters. Smart meters emit radio frequency radiation constantly, and people have become very sensitive from having those installed. So solutions. One TEDx talk that I absolutely love is by Jeremy Johnson, who's a civil engineer and previously a manager at a large Silicon Valley firm, turned tech health advocate when wireless technology from smart meters severely affected his health. His TEDx talk is called Wireless Wake Up Call. I recommend watching it. And he talks about designing products which are safer. So he says, currently we have product designers and engineers working together. Why don't we bring in biophysicists and biologists to work together to create products that don't just admit right underneath the FCC regulations, but admit the least amount of any type of electromagnetic fields as possible? That would be awesome. Because again, I'm personally not anti-technology. I love and I'm grateful for the technology, but why don't we start working with these people and raising awareness that we want safer products? So get get involved, sign and share our petition everywhere. Again, that's bit.ly/stop5GAUS. Also sign the 5G space appeal as well, really important. You can check out the articles on my website. I wrote a reply to our PANZA's public press statement, which you can read. You can read more about the B research and other research on my website. You can join your local Stop 5G action groups. You can write to council and your local members. Really crucial that you do that. Meet with your local members in person, present the research to them, share content on social media. You can share my post from facebook.com/getafreshstart. If you look up my name, Jessie Reimers, you should be able to follow, like my Facebook page, which is the one with 31,000 likes on it. And then if you change notifications up the top to see all, so you're more likely to see my content and be able to share it. You can follow me on Instagram as well, Jessie_Reimers, and you can tag people in those posts. If you don't know what to say, feel free to just share the content that I've created and make it easier for yourself. So how to actually win. Important. This is not a time for mass hysteria. Also not a time for spending all day in Facebook groups without taking actual physical action. This is a time for sensible, evidence-based discussion, for continually demanding a precautionary approach, for continually requesting better standards from our government and regulatory bodies, present the research calmly and professionally, collaborate, get in physical groups with people, show up to events. I'm speaking at an event on the Sunshine Coast on the 2nd of July, speaking at the 7th of July event in Brisbane, the Health Symposium. I just had to cancel a Gold Coast event because only one person had bought a ticket and the venue was far too expensive to risk that kind of financial loss. So unfortunately, more people didn't book tickets for that. But come to Sunshine Coast, come to Brisbane. If there are other events in your local area, go to them. If there's not any, start your own. Object to council, as I've said, and importantly, don't be a dick. Don't just be commenting in Facebook groups and, you know, getting in fights with trolls and wasting your time and energy feeling depressed and miserable about it, which we can slip into. Just take action. This is really crucial. The greatest threat to the planet is the belief that someone else will save it. I can't tell you how many times I've had emails and messages saying, telling me, you know, how to do this better or how to do that or who I should contact or what I should be doing to stop 5G. Take personal responsibility yourself. Don't put all your eggs in the basket of me single-handedly stopping it. It's not going to happen at all. This needs to be a massive collaborative effort. We need to get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Australians on board with this action so that we can work together. People power is what's going to win it. It's not going to be any single person that gets the job done. It's going to be a consistent collaboration. So anything that you can personally do and you can inspire action in others to do, please do that. Do not leave this up to someone else. We need you to stand up and take action for the kids, for the bees, for yourself, for everyone's health and safety. It's really crucial that we keep working on this together. So thank you so much for spending your time tonight, coming on and watching this webinar. I appreciate you taking the time to learn more about this. And yeah, just be inspired to continue to show up, to continue to educate and raise awareness sensibly, calmly, and with evidence-based facts. And also take time to take self-care. Remember that you can create safe spaces in your own home because sleep is the most crucial thing to allow your body and your cells to reset and to heal. So make a safe sleeping environment. Turn that Wi-Fi router off at night. Have your phone off or on airplane mode. Don't have heaps of electrical devices in your bedroom and create that safe space. And also, I forgot to mention, decked or cordless phones are as bad, if not worse, than mobile phones. So get rid of those and go back to a proper wired landline, or get rid of it. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time and have a fantastic night.